Roll call, please.
Director Michael Schaefer.
Here.
Director Arthur Perry.
Here.
Secretary Arlene Schaefer. President, Vice President Robert Wooten.
Here.
President James Fairman.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I do have some public comment cards, and would my old friend Doug Dabbert come to the podium, please?
Podium's back here. Well, good morning. My name's Doug Dabbert. I'm currently the president of the East Orange County Water District, also the vice chairman of Orange County LAFCO. And if you haven't heard already, we have another vacancy at LAFCO. You'll recall that I, along with Director Uten and Director Pfister, were here a year ago campaigning for seats at LAFCO. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity this past year to serve as your voting representative, one of the two for us at LAFCO. I'm here today to give you a little bit of an update and then ask a big favor. The update is that in this past year, when I stood here before you a year ago, I promised that I would do everything I could to make some changes at LAFCO. As you know, LAFCO was a ship that was heading in a certain direction, a direction of expansion, a direction of mission creep, a direction of intrusiveness into what you do, and a direction into forced consolidation. All three of us that were running at the time, Jim Fissler, Bob Uten, and I, were steadfast in our belief that local government does the best job, that local controls the rule. And to that end, we've made a lot of changes. We made changes to the work plan. We made significant changes to the policies and procedures. We have really toned down the MSR process, we think, whereas the MSR process has typically been very burdensome. We now have the executive officer who's actually opined recently that perhaps some districts could have something as simple as a one-page MSR. That is something that's never happened before, and this is what I call progress. With me at every turn and behind me on this mission to pull back the reins of LAFCO has been Jim Fissler, and he has served as your alternate for the last 10 years, 9 years. I am very sensitive to the fact that between Costa Mesa, San, and the Mesa Water District, there's been a lot of stuff. And I know that there have been some personal conflicts between Director Fissler and some members of your board, and I get that. I am asking you in the name of special districts, in the interest of special districts, maybe put that aside for this vote. Jim's been there. He's protected all special districts, including yours, and he will continue to do so. The only other candidate that I'm aware of at this point is Sandra Jacobs from the Santa Margarita Water District. She's a fine lady. She's the current president of ISDOC. Jim's the former president of ISDOC. I have nothing against her, but Santa Margarita has held that seat for the last 10 years. And this is an opportunity now for another district to represent you at LAFCO as the voting member. That would open up the alternate seat, and then anybody is free to, the nominations are now. So if you want to nominate somebody for that alternate seat, I'd encourage you to do so. But I'm not going to ask you, if you can find it in you somewhere, to please support Jim, because he's helping me do what we need to do to protect special districts. And that's all I have. Thank you. Any questions, I'm available.
Thanks, Doug. Any questions for Doug?
Yeah, I do. How long are you an alternate for? I mean, how long? Yeah.
I've been there since 2011. I'm in my 90th.
Okay. But I mean, when are you up again?
3 more years.
Okay, that's what I was curious.
Yeah, so the way it is now, Jim's the alternate he's currently the voting member because there's a vacancy. Charlie Wilson resigned. Mm-hmm. If Jim is not successful, he'll retain his alternate seat.
I understand that,
Yeah,
seriously, because I've been there.
Yeah, thank you.
I went all the way up the ladder to president. So
we want Jim to be the voting
So I
member,
understand.
so.
But the only thing that I was curious about was, and we talked about this at ISDOC, is that everybody be able to say, I'm running for both seats. And then that way, the one who gets it would be the voting, and the other one would be an alternate.
Yes, and while that makes perfect sense, the bureaucracy at LAFCO and their rules say that you have to be nominated for both offices. So
Yeah,
Jim doesn't need to be nominated for the alternate because
Yeah.
he is the alternate.
Right.
But Sandra or anybody else, and we're hoping other people will step up. Right now it just appears to be 2, but we'd like to have a field of candidates to choose from. But so far Sandra has declined to be considered for the alternate position. it's kind of all or nothing, which I don't fully understand.
I think they're going to have something out now. ISDOC, we're going to put something out on that
So we'll see what happens.
after this last meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Any other questions for Doug? Okay, let's move along. Mr. Fissler, would you like to step up to the podium?
Good morning, Mr. President, board, staff. Jim Fissler, Director at Mesa Water District, where I served on the board for the last 10 years, including 2 years as president. And I thank you for the opportunity to be before you today and speak, and I'll be brief. As I stand here, I'm currently in my 9th year serving the special districts as the alternate commissioner on OC LAFCO, and I am ready to step up to the full voting seat, which has recently been vacated. In case you don't know what an alternate does, it doesn't mean I'm on call if someone calls in and says they're not going to show up or I'm in the audience. No, I've been at the dais for 8+ years, participating in every discussion on every agenda item except for one meeting I've missed in this period of time. So I have a lot of knowledge and experience there. At LAFCO, we, of course, Arlene, as you know, we have a lot of things that we handle. This year, what we're looking at is our 4th round of the MSRs, as Doug explained, so I won't go over it, but they are going to be a little more friendlier and a little more efficient. We also have changed the focus of LAFCO to be more of a disseminator of information and a facilitator rather than an initiator of items. As any government should be, it should be a resource for people, not something to fear. And I think we've turned that ship around very well. I feel I've been a very effective commissioner that has influenced decisions through these 8+ years that have really benefited special districts. It has protected them. It has protected local control. We also have on our work plan, of course, are the islands. We had 40 islands when I started, probably maybe more when you were there. We're down to 27, large and small. They're all over Orange County. This does not need to be a regionalized seat that has to be held by someone from South County. We have a very balanced commission. There are some that are trying to regionalize it because of the development of Rancho Mission Viejo, which is a large project, saying that it has to be someone from South County Special District to vote on that development down there. Well, it's a false premise. LAFCO is strictly prohibited from land use decisions, zoning. We're not a planning commission. The phase 1 of the ranch has been developed. Phase 2 is being built. There's 6 phases. That's all been handled by the governing agency of that area, which is the Orange County Board of Supervisors and the Orange County Planning Commission. Our only role down there is to ensure optimal governance formation when it does get fully developed, whether it should be annexed into cities or be a new city, and also right now to ensure delivery of vital services that the county can't provide. The county provides almost all services except for 2, water and wastewater. That will be done by a special district. So the voting member is going to decide which wastewater or water agency is going to provide services there. I'm fully capable of deciding and voting on that, just living in Costa Mesa, even though I'm 20 minutes away from the project. So I think it's sort of a red herring to say it has to go to South County. So in summary, it would just be a distinct honor to continue to serve the Special District Orange County, but as a full voting member to ensure economical and efficient delivery of government services for the people. I believe I have the most knowledge and experience with my 8+ years. I've shown the interest. I sat in the audience for a year before I ran for LAFCO. And I would just ask you to vote for me, or at least consider voting for me. And I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you this morning, and I'm here to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Jim? Anybody? Thank you again. We'll give it full consideration.
Enjoy your budget meeting. I'm going to slip out my day job.
Okay, Mr. Mosier, you want to come up?
Thank you, President Furman and members of the board. My name is Jim Mosier. I wasn't expecting a presentation on LAFCO and boundary matters, but the non-agenda comment I meant to ask is very relevant to that. several study sessions back, we heard a presentation about the potential annexation or change of the boundary of this district to include certain properties in Newport Beach. And I had the impression at that time it was coming back fairly soon. I've heard nothing about that at the Newport Beach end, so I'm wondering if you might want to ask the staff if there is any report on the status of that effort. Thank you.
Would you like me to respond? Thank you, Mr. President and Board. Yes, right now the status is both our district council and their legal counsel are going back and forth on the agreement. We have to have an agreement in place with those properties. I just saw our final version go to their attorney's office yesterday. We're hoping to get it finalized this week and maybe have it ready for you to consider adopting or approving next week at your board agenda, along with a resolution of intent to annex those properties. So hopefully next week. That's the plan. If not, then we'll have to wait till June.
Okay, any other comments on that? Jim, we'll get back to your card here when we get to the proper time. Okay, let's, organics tonnage report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Just items number 1 and 2. Again, these are just our standard reports that we present to you every month. No formal presentation to give, just available to answer any questions you have.
Anybody have questions?
I have a question, Jim, real quick. And I may save this for when Nabila gives her glowing report about our event last week. But regarding the organics tonnage, having attended that Waste Expo last week and participating in, I know more about anaerobic digestion than even PARS and Mike knew now. But the big thing with the organics people during that conference was contamination. They talked about, we saw examples of these farms out of the Midwest that do their own anaerobic digestion right on the farm. I mean, but even for the municipalities and the cities, the big deal was the contamination of the organics. They want to make sure the contamination is taken care of before it gets to the process. So as part of our organics tonnage, our reports, is there any way we can get what the contamination percentages are? Maybe, Nabila, are we getting that now?
Yes, we are getting it now. It's less than 5%. It's always under 30 pounds or under 30 tons. I can share that with the board.
Can that be in the? I didn't see it in the report. Can we start having that in the report?
Yes, of course.
Okay, that's really all I wanted to ask for.
I visited one of the CR&R facilities, and they put a truck, they dumped the truck on the ground or in the building, and it was minimal, and it was early in the program, and it may have been more than, and you could see a bag of trash every once in a while as contamination, but
it was funny during these seminars that I was at. I know we've had minimal contamination. I think that's kind of been assumed with us, but these guys, these other areas, it was huge. I mean, we've apparently done a pretty good job of getting our residents to buy into this because we're not getting a big contamination, whereas these other municipalities, they have to take magnets and go through this stuff, and it was really crazy. It seemed like there was a lot of money spent on decontaminating the product before it even got into the system. So I was just curious. But if we could include that, just a curiosity thing.
Well, I think in the long run, it probably saves them money by being overcautious and, working on the quality.
That's kind of the impression I got, that once it gets into the, they were talking about the biggest contamination factor in most of these places was grit and sand. That was the biggest problem, and I don't think we have that issue. At least I hope we don't.
And at the Paris facility, we have, like what you're talking about, the magnets and other mechanisms to help sort out the materials. And because of that process may be the reason why we're only getting about like 5% of contamination in the load itself.
Okay.
But when you're referring to these other municipalities, are you talking about strictly residential loads, or are you talking about a mix between both residential and commercial?
Yeah, it was both. And there was a lot of emphasis, like I said, on agricultural. Apparently, a lot of these farms in the Midwest, a ton of farms in the Midwest, do their own anaerobic digestion facility. And they were talking about how wastewater facilities all over the country are building anaerobic digestion facilities into their wastewater. So it's both residential and commercial and agricultural. So, which we don't have to worry about, I don't think.
You know, even with Orange County Sand District, LA County Sand District, and I work for both, they, a lot of stream materials and a lot of grit and sand, and that comes from you know, pipelines, bring it down, and the pipelines erode their concrete. And one time we had a line break in the Santa Ana River, and water was coming in. We thought they were going to fill the digesters up with sand, clean sand, but that's a big opportunity for everybody that has an anaerobic digester.
Okay.
I have a question, Jim.
Yeah. Al, or
Question, does CRNR do any commercial organics in Costa Mesa?
We do have some commercial organics accounts, yeah.
What is that percentage? Is it still 5 or is it greater?
The contamination for that, I don't know on top of my head. I can get back to you on that.
I'd like to find that out. Just,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'd like to know
Future.
what facility, I don't need names, but what kind of facilities you're doing, whether it be restaurants or markets or whatever.
I imagine it's both. I know, like, one that comes to my mind top of the head is the Mesa Verde, Mesa Verde, the country club.
Okay.
So they have a program there.
Good.
So I imagine primarily, you know, it's coming from their on-site, like, restaurant and whatever facilities they have there. But some of it may also be from
I mean,
landscaping.
country club would be a natural place to do organics with all the grass, and I mean, that would be a lot of feedstock for you guys.
Do we get credit for that, for the sanitary district, for their organics?
We don't get, no, that would technically fall under the city. Sand District doesn't get credit for Mesa Verde.
Jim, one last question. Those are big bins. Do they go directly to, do they go to Stanton or do they go directly to Paris?
So in the case of, like, you're talking about roll-offs, or you're just talking about commercial bins?
Just the 3 or 4 cubic yard bins.
So in the case of those will go to Stanton. And, like, for food waste, we cap it at 2 cubic yards for the container, just because it's more dense and it'll get heavy.
Heavier, yeah.
Arlene had a question.
Yes. I raised my hand. Anyway.
I had my hand up, but Jim didn't see it.
I just wanted to comment on the organic tonnage. And, you know, last week, a lot of us went and gave out rewards, money for the battery contest. And, you know, it's so overwhelming, seriously, because the schools are so happy to get it. And they're so excited. And I was stressing about the battery, not only the buckets, but if all your teachers took the buckets, that you could save all year and get a lot more and so forth. And, you know, people, and the parents are listening in the background. They're right there. And I think that what's happened is we're making people more aware about organics now because of this awards contest that we have. And they are so excited. And you tell them, you got 4th place, or you got, you know, you could do better than that. Next year, if you want to see me, you do something, you know, and that kind of thing.
I went to Sonora, where my wife taught, you know, for ages, but they were very impressed with the amount of money they got.
Yeah.
I mean, they came in second, and they got $1,000, and I think number 1 gets $1,200. But you know, it was significant. It was a significant enough amount to get their attention, and you know, they were very pleased.
Well, you know, I'm going to race school, and they came in last. So I'll let you know how their reaction was with the $100.
Well, you don't have to say you came in
Oh,
line.
believe me, I would never say that. I went to race school. I can't say that.
I saw a picture of Arlene, with the lady that was dressed with an Energizer dress. I think Arlene ought to have one of those.
I think the district ought to look into an Energizer costume for Arlene.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to have to ask you to refrain from degrading you.
It's
You know, it was degrading. That might have been an improvement.
You're harassing me.
That's right. Okay, any other questions or comments on that? Let's move along to Code Enforcement Officer, Ed.
To get my bearing here. Good morning, President Perryman and members of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District Board. Ed Roberts, your District Code Enforcement Officer. I'll be giving the Code Enforcement Officer report for April 2019. For the benefit of the Board of Directors, there's a summary that's being compiled with some maps orienting you as to the locations of the contacts I had with the scavengers. For April 2019, ladies and gentlemen, I had a total of 5 contacts that were documented. I had several people run away from me, so it would have been a larger number, but these are the folks that I caught up to and were able to chat them up and contact. There's a brief narrative on each one. Also at the back of the report, you'll see a at-a-glance map of Costa Mesa with kind of a snapshot of the contacts. And for this month, they were primarily concentrated on the west end of town, west side of town, over right around the 19th Street corridor in Harbor Boulevard. Does the board have any questions specifically regarding the scavenger enforcement?
Any questions for Ed?
Just a quick comment, maybe. With the new bridge shelter and the new permanent shelter that's going to be coming into place whenever, should we be keeping an eye on those areas? I don't want to categorize people going to the shelters as being scavengers, but I think there might be something we need to keep an eye on those 2 locations. Or
well, sir, if you're asking for an opinion, I think it'd be prudent perhaps to make outreach, some sort of outreach effort to the management or whomever is going to be administrating the shelter, and just acquaint the folks with what our policy procedure and our rules and laws are pertaining to activity, because they, I mean, we can be honest, it's an activity that's associated with that demographic.
I like that proactive approach, and if we can do that, I think that's a really good idea.
Just thought maybe you could post it at the facility, you know, as a permanent post.
Anti-scavenging stuff.
Just so they know, they're aware of it.
Yeah.
Any other comments or?
Jim, I'd like,
Bob?
Officer Roberts, were you here when there used to be a recycling facility at Smart and Final?
Familiar with it, sir.
And the city council or somebody got rid of it. Do you see an increase or were you here when that was operating? Were you doing
Yes, sir. In my tenure as a code enforcement officer for the city of Costa Mesa, I was there about 12 years. It was Garcia Recycling, if I remember correctly, off of 19th Street, right across from the Someone Cares soup kitchen.
Smart and Final, or near
Yes, sir. It was in that parking lot right there.
Has the abandonment of that system changed the scavenging? You said a lot of it along 19th Street. That was on 19th Street.
Yes, sir. Let me choose my words carefully. By that fueled an economy or a microeconomy in that area, because folks would go into the community, scavenge, collect the items, and then exchange for monies. So obviously there was a proliferation of scavenging when you had a source of revenue or money for the folks. With the exit of Garcia Recycling and the facility that was over off of Newport Boulevard and I believe Victoria,
Brothers.
Yeah, Stater Brothers parking lot. My personal opinion is I've seen a certain noticeable decrease in the amount of folks scavenging, just because there's no remuneration for it.
No close.
Yes, sir.
There's no easy access point for them to get the money.
Pretty much, sir. That's what it is.
OCC, you can go to OCC.
Now they have to go to OCC, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any additional questions regarding the scavenging?
Anything else? Yeah, thank you once again. Or do you have any?
Just one more component, sir. Apologize. And for the month of April, trash container enforcement, proactive enforcement, resulting in closure, 103 for the month, which is pretty consistent. We average between 80 and about 120. That's the range that I see in the year that's manageable during the course of a month. Nothing really of note there. A couple problematic properties that resulted in some increased efforts to talk to folks, but at the end of the day, we got our trash cans put away.
It's funny, every month I kid Ed about Iowa Street. Well, you know, that house sold.
Yes. Yeah.
And the new residents are much more conscientious.
Right.
And then the last question I had for Ed was, you know, you said that as you come up, people run away from you.
Yes, sir.
On Live PD, the cops chase those guys. You don't get out of the car and chase those perps down the street. Don't answer.
I'm sure Scott would have an issue with that, but
don't answer that question.
We try not to. At that point, the way I see it's mission accomplished. We dissuaded the activity, whether it's visual deterrent. I'm just patrolling down the street. Oh shoot, there's the code enforcement guy. You know, kind of just go away. Or if we do, you know, I'm kind of sneaky. I like to catch people. Unfortunately, some people don't know the difference between code enforcement and police. They equate law enforcement. So they just scatter sometimes, which is fine. No harm, no foul.
Does the job.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Ed.
My pleasure.
Again. Good job.
Thanks.
Okay, number 4, quarterly legislative update.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gina Tirano will be giving his report.
Thank you. Good morning, President Ferryman and members of the board. Before you is our quarterly legislative update. And next week, Secretary Schaefer, District Clerk Nolani Midway, and myself will be going up to Sacramento for CSDA's annual legislative days. And we're going to be meeting with Assemblywoman Petrie Norris and Senator Morlock to discuss some priority bills. So these bills include first AB 1672, which would prohibit manufacturers from labeling sanitary wipe products as flushable if they don't meet the proper criteria for flushability. And as we know, wipes can cause costly damage and backups to sewer systems. So this bill would help to provide consistent consumer messaging on these types of products. So we are supporting that bill. And another bill that we'll be discussing is AB 1184, which seeks to amend the California Public Records Act to require public agencies to retain and preserve all emails relating to the agency's business for at least 2 years. The district's current retention schedule only requires emails to be kept on an as-needed basis. And so opponents of the bill, which include CSDA and the League of California Cities, they argue that it would result in additional costs for public agencies to store this data and also spending additional staff time retrieving email communications in response to public records requests. So that's one that we are opposing. And just some other notable bills from my report. There's AB 161, which would prohibit businesses from printing paper receipts for customers if they choose not to receive a receipt. It's similar to state provisions for single-use plastic bags and straws. So that is something they're trying to limit. And AB 619 would allow for the use of reusable food and beverage containers at restaurants and temporary events, provided that proper measures are taken to prevent contamination. So this is another effort to reduce single-use products like disposable plates and utensils. And then AB 827 would require businesses that generate organic waste to provide customers with the proper recycling and organics waste bins that are visible, easily accessible, and clearly marked in order to encourage a habit and a behavior of food waste separation.
Can you read that one again, please?
Sure. So basically, any business that generates organic waste would be required to have a proper organics waste bin in their business for customers to use. So that's what it would require. Next is AB 1162, and that would prohibit hotels from providing those tiny plastic bottles for shampoo and conditioner and things like that. So another bill to try to reduce plastic. And then lastly, AB 849 addresses voting districts. And so this bill is seeking to require all local jurisdictions to adopt new voting districts after each decennial census, so every 10 years. So we're following that as well. Overall, in relation to the district, the legislative session is continuing to see a focus on protecting employees against discrimination and sexual harassment, as well as efforts to reduce the production of single-use plastics. So those are kind of the focuses that I'm seeing. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Gina. Any questions for Gina?
Real quick, you know that the one about the receipts?
Yes.
Every restaurant just about now says to you, do you want your receipt? And I usually say no. They print the receipt, they waddle it, or they crumple it up, and they throw it away.
Yes. So that's what this bill is trying to prevent. So they
preventing the bill from being, so when they say, do you want your receipt, and you say no, they won't print it at all.
Or they get a fine if they do, if this was passed.
Yeah. And then Assemblywoman Norris's bill, can you explain that one? I'm a little confused about that one.
It's,
And it's her priority, I understand.
It is her priority.
65.
Let me find it. 65, yes. So the way I understand it is that the bill seeks to support the use of green, or what they call natural infrastructure.
Okay.
So let's see, would require,
She's looking for agencies or to get grants to do green infrastructure, as I understand it, right?
Yeah.
Does she have do you know if she has a funding source for those grants?
I think she's looking at, so it's called the State Coastal Conservancy.
Okay.
I'm not too familiar with that agency, but it looks like they would be the grantors if this passed. So it would go to local agencies, I guess, that.
Okay. When you guys visit with her next week, would you mind just asking what the funding source for that?
Me too.
Well, you're here. You heard me. So when you guys go, if you would just, I'm curious to know where they're going to get the money to fund those grants.
Sure, we can find out.
Okay.
They have someone working on grants.
I'm sure she does.
What is green infrastructure?
So I think solar's included in it.
Yeah. So the types of
Urinals
projects
that don't go into this, that don't flush, those kinds of things.
Yeah, so something like using trees and shrubs to prevent erosion from waves at the beach, or using salt marshes to mitigate the effects of storms and waves. So just using natural things as infrastructure.
In other words, they wouldn't clean out the Santa Ana River, they would leave it growing, is how I understood it. But anyway, I'm just curious as to where the money's going to come from.
That'd be horrible.
Anything else?
If that's a particular emphasis on the bill.
I have one question for Scott. How long do we keep our emails?
As needed, according to
As
district court, yes.
Who judges, is there, you guys obviously are the ones that judge.
Mr.
whether
Mosier,
they-
do you have a comment on this item?
Yes, I do. First of all, I'm trying to understand the district's policy on this. If I understand the boilerplate at the top of the first page of the report, it says that the district since 2010 automatically adopts the position of any group or agency or organization that it is a member of. And I believe the district is a member of the California Special Districts Association. And when I go through the report, there's many of the bills that CSDA is either supporting or opposing, yet only 2 of them bubble up to the top of this list where the district is supporting or opposing them. I'm having trouble understanding that. And then second, I'm having extreme trouble understanding why this district is objecting to AB 1184, which is the bill clarifying that emails are records like all paper records that need to be retained for 2 years before an agency can destroy their copies of them. I'm looking at this district's strategic plan. It has a page called Core Values. The very top core value is transparency. It says we believe in open government where information and documents are easily accessible to the public. And yet you're going to go and tell the assembly person that we don't want to be troubled with keeping these because we would then have to go and retrieve them and let the public look at them. I cannot reconcile those two things, and I don't find a core value that would single out emails as being something that you would not want to store. You have to store paper records for 2 years. Emails are arguably a lot less expensive and easy to store. I know the Yahoo service stores every email I've ever sent, and it cost me nothing. I don't know why the district is concerned about expense, and it's inconsistent with your past positions on things. I recall when the California Supreme Court came out with its decision in the, I think it's called Smith versus San Jose, that emails on personal devices were subject to Public Records Act request. The district went to considerable expense to buy you district-owned devices so that you would not intermix your emails with ones on district business with personal business. And I would guess that that expense is far more than the expense we're talking about here, saving emails on a little device which is becoming extremely inexpensive to store equipment. So it's unfathomable to me why you would be lobbying our assemblyman that we don't want this. Thank you.
Scott, do you have any response to that?
Gina's phone.
Sure. I'll refer to District Clerk Nolani Midway.
Before Nolani speaks, I attended a kind of a synopsis thing on this bill through SDRMA, and the person who was speaking to us was talking about the biggest reason to have that changed is that the storage capacities are just, the computer storage capacities just are not going to be able to handle the volume of the, whether that's true or not, I'm not a techno geek by any stretch, but that was part of it, was that systems aren't going to be able to handle the sheer volume of the emails and storing them for that long. Nolani, I don't know if that...
That's correct, sir. Mr. President, members of the board, we do have a consultant that we work with professionally who does all of our revisions to our retention schedule. And it is her professional opinion, which is of the legal side, that our emails are to be kept on an as-needed basis. We don't need to keep emails that if someone were to search and say, I'm looking for any and all emails with the word correspondence over the last 2 years. For an agency much larger than ours, that could mean thousands upon thousands of emails. So that was the purpose of this bill, and we were supporting CSDA's stand on opposing the bill because it could impact us as well. If the emails are relative to district business that are pertinent to something substantial, then we can retain those records. We would print them if need be and file them away for the 2 years and move forward. But these are more for like mediocre emails.
Thank you. Is there any other comments or? Okay, let's move along. Preliminary budget review, 2020 and 21.
Thank you, Mr. President and Board of Directors. This is your time to review our proposed two-year budget for fiscal year 2019-20 and 2020-21. I want to commend Caitlin and the Finance Department for putting this budget together. It's a lot of work, a lot of time and effort. She spent a lot of long hours putting this together, and this is her first presentation to you. Mark Davis and myself will be here to support, but we're seeking comments, directions from the board. If there's anything you want to change, add to the budget, now's time to do it. We are presenting this budget to the CAC, the Citizens Advisory Committee, this Thursday. Based on your comments and from the CAC comments, we'll bring the budget back again next week for review, and then finally for adoption in the end of June. So I'm going to turn this over to Caitlin, and she'll give you a presentation.
Do you have a comment?
Why don't we let her go ahead and...
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. President, Board of Directors. Before you is the preliminary biannual budget for fiscal year 2019-20 and fiscal year 2020-21. Staff is requesting the Board of Directors to provide feedback to staff regarding the budget. With Board of Directors recommendation, staff will update the budget and bring it back to next week's board meeting, like Scott said. A special meeting is also set aside if we need to discuss furthermore. That is scheduled for May 29th. I will go through the attachment A first. That's the preliminary budget for fiscal year 1920, and then attachment B, preliminary budget fiscal year 2021, and then lastly attachment C for capital improvement projects. So attachment A, preliminary budget for fiscal year 1920, I'm looking at the line item. So if you go to the second page on that, I'll be going back and forth between pages. A total preliminary budget for fiscal year 1920 is $12,447,000. Of that, $6,512,000 is in the solid waste fund. Assumes operating at a deficit of $584,000. A solid waste fund has been operating. The solid waste fund has been operating at a deficit. Therefore, a solid waste rate study has been conducted with the recommendation of a 5-year rate increase. For fiscal year 1920, the recommendation for fiscal year 1920, we recommend to increase from $216 a year to $224.88 a year. If a majority of protest does not exist and the board approved the proposed rate increase at the June 27 meeting, the total revenue budget for solid waste is $5,928,000. Wastewater fund has a balanced budget of $5,935,000. In fiscal 17-18, that was the last year of the 5-year 2% rate increase from the 2012 sewer rate study adopted by the board. The district is not planning to increase wastewater rate for the next 2 years. Wastewater revenue is projected to have a 2% increase, assuming an increase in new accounts during the year. And now moving on to salaries and benefits. Salaries and benefits for fiscal year 1920 is approximately $2.4 million. It includes the 2.5% COLA and the class and comp study the board approved last month. For operations and maintenance, a total preliminary budget of $8,084,000. Of that, approximately $5.7 million is the solid waste fund budget. While waiting for the CR&R profit margin audit to be completed, for budgeting purposes, Staff projected a 5.8% CPI increase rate request by CR&R in this preliminary budget. The district is working on implementing online permitting and inspection. Therefore, staff budgeted $38,000. In addition, this year, fiscal year 1920, for the implementation. $38,000, that's just for the first year, and then thereafter will be just $15,000 for licensing. And for capital outlay, staff is requesting a total of $138,000. Of that, $68,000 is for the continuation of updating software, hardware, servers, and to replace 2 of the 9 AC units at headquarters. In this preliminary budget, capital outlay, $70,000 is budgeted for a new truck for the superintendent. However, yesterday, after Scott met with field staff, we determined that it is necessary for safety purposes to have 2 additional trucks instead of 1. And because we're not increasing rates in wastewater and budget is a little tight, we're considering leasing instead of purchasing the 2 trucks. And for programs, a budget total of $154,000. And that's for fiscal year 19 and 20. Now moving on to attachment B, preliminary budget for fiscal year 2021, line item. The total preliminary budget for fiscal year 2021 is $12,571,000. Of that, $6,626,000 is solid waste fund budget. Assumes operating at a deficit of $317,000. Again, if the Board of Directors approve the proposed rate increase at June 27th board meeting, fiscal year 2021 will be the second of the 5 years rate increase. The increase from increasing annual rates from $224.88 to $240.60 a year. So with that, total revenue for solid waste budget is $6,309,000. For wastewater fund, again, we have a balanced budget of $5,945,000. Like I mentioned earlier, the district is not planning to increase wastewater rates for this budget cycle. Salaries and benefits, a budget approximately of $2.5 million. It includes the class and comp study and an estimate of 2.5% cost of living adjustment. Operations and maintenance, a total preliminary budget of $8,114,500. Of that, approximately $5.8 million is the solid waste fund budget. If the board approved the 5.8% CPI increase rate requested by CR&R, the hauler rate will increase only in the first year. That's fiscal year 1920. For fiscal year 2021, rate will remain the same. Staff projects there will be a 2% increase in occupancy account and tonnages. So you see, even though rate remain the same, but there's an increase in account. For capital outlay, fiscal year 2021, staff is requesting a total of $119,000. Of that, $53,000 is for a new electric car for the engineering technician / inspector. And another $66,000 for continuation of updating software, computer, hardware, server, and an additional mount charger for the electric car here at headquarters. And then again, $154,000 for programs. And now I will go into attachment C, capital improvement projects for the next 2 years. Staff is requesting three projects for fiscal year 19-20 budget with a total budget of $1,755,000. Staff is projecting there will be 6 incomplete projects for fiscal year 18-19. Staff will request a carryover later. For fiscal year 2021, staff is requesting 6 new projects with a total of $1,567,000. A preliminary budget detail for selected account and the solid waste and wastewater net position are attached. I'm here for any questions, and Mark can.
I have a question. You brought up the idea of us buying another car for, I'm not sure what department it was, but actually 2 cars. One was the electric car, and then the other one is that a normal?
Just a truck. The electric car is in the second year budget.
Oh. Okay.
And the first year budget, 19-20, we put in here for $70,000 for just one truck, but after discussing, meeting with field staff, we determined that for safety purposes, we will need 2 additional trucks instead of 1. And Scott can answer any questions in why we.
Well, is that an increase in people we employ?
No, thank you. I'll let me elaborate a little more on that. So yesterday we had an SSO refresher training at the yard with staff and our contractor, and so at the end of the at the end of the presentation, I say, okay, Addison, what do you need? Anything you need to help you provide, help you perform your services, to respond to SSOs, to clean SOs, anything you need for safety reasons. What don't you have, what you need? And staff came up with, they believe that, okay, they would like to have a pickup truck, or what we call a utility truck, which is just like a pickup truck, that would be parked behind the cleaning truck. So it'll be extra visibility for oncoming cars coming in. It also gives them a little more protection from traffic. There wouldn't be additional staff. One person would drive the cleaning truck, one person would drive the pickup truck. It was just another vehicle for be in the street for safety purposes. We're going to replace one vehicle already. It's over 10 years old. We're going to use that as a utility truck. As you know, we have 2 cleaning trucks. So then we say, well, then we're going to need a second one. As Caitlin mentioned, we budgeted $70,000 to purchase one, but then I started thinking, well, why don't we lease 2 vehicles? We could probably lease 2 vehicles for less than $70,000, and then in that lease we can buy those vehicles. So it'll be less stress on the budget for these next 2 years, and then when your lease is up, you have that option to buy. So then we can just buy the trucks the next 2-year cycle. We can budget for that. That was our thinking.
Art, why, since those are used in the wastewater area, why aren't we increasing the budget for the wastewater?
You mean the rates?
The rates.
The rates. Because we're increasing the rates on the solid waste, and it was just a decision I made to present to the board. I don't want to hit the public with 2 rates simultaneously. So I figured let's start off with a rate increase with the solid waste, and then do a solid waste study. A wastewater study 2 years from now and see if we do need to increase the rates, how much would that be? But I just didn't want the residents to be hit twice with 2 rates.
It doesn't make sense, though, to take it out of the other fund and not the wastewater fund for the trucks, is what I'm saying.
We're not taking it out of solid waste. It's
Yeah.
Where's it coming from?
wastewater.
Wastewater funds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's put it for wastewater service, right?
And we already have money set aside for those trucks, for the one truck? Did
We have one, we budgeted in the budget $70,000 for 1 truck. So, but as we learned from yesterday, all of a sudden we just found out yesterday that maybe we need another truck. Rather than budgeting another $70,000, putting a little more stress on the wastewater budget, why don't we use that $70,000 to lease 2 vehicles, be less stress on the budget? We've never done that before, so maybe one option to look into that.
Have you looked into that, possible leasing and then purchase? Have you looked into what the expense would be for that?
We haven't. We have not done that. We haven't done our research on that. I've done that before in other organizations, but for here, we'd have to do some kind of analysis what that additional cost, because you will be paying interest on it. But it would be a short-term lease. I don't know if they can do a 2-year lease. Ideally, it'd be like a 2-year, possibly 3-year lease.
But I'm just thinking, lease purchase. I mean, what
Yes.
would the cost be for the purchase after a 2-year lease?
Right. Yeah, we still need to do some. We still have to do some more research on that. But
See what that costs.
Bob?
In that regard, it's a 10-year-old vehicle.
Mhm.
What makes it untenable not to just keep it?
we are going to keep that vehicle. So we're keeping that vehicle. So the one we have right now is 10 years. We're still keeping that in the fleet. That will be used as our utility truck to help support the cleaning crew. Correct. That truck right now is being designated for our superintendent. Our superintendent's using that truck.
That's right.
So he'll get the new truck. The old truck will still be in service. It'll be serviced as a backup or support service for the cleaning crew.
So what's the
Then you need-
rationale for a third vehicle?
Because we have 2 cleaning trucks, right? And so I guess as a possibility, I guess you can look at that. We could use the superintendent's vehicle for that, for when they're cleaning. But
No, I'm not talking about doing that. I'd forgotten we had two vehicles. We had 2 cleaning trucks.
Right,
And
right.
one of them's out of service 2/3 of the time.
Mhm.
That's another story.
Well, yes, the new wastewater cleaning truck should be arriving next month, so we'll get a new one.
So what staff is concerned about is people driving into them when they're working.
Not seeing them, visibility, yes, so the pickup trucks also have the arrow boards on them, so there'll be clear visibility. It's another protection for them, so if a car hits the truck and not the cleaning truck.
I think that's appropriate. I don't know why we would need a new vehicle to sit out there.
Well, we bought a used truck last time at a local used dealership here, I won't name, and it turned out to be a big lemon. And I just did not want to go down that road again, and more reliability with a new truck.
Well, a lot of people buy used cars and they don't get lemons.
It was just
What we need to do is talk to some of those people.
maybe it was just the luck of the draw. We got such a bad vehicle.
Bought a used car. Don't bring that up, please.
Yeah, could you tell me what the electric car would be used for?
The electric car we use for our inspector. As you recall, we talked about the construction inspections. So our engineering technician, he is in training now to be an inspector, public works inspector. So on the 2021 year budget, the second year budget, we're hoping that he'll complete his training. He'll be certified. He'll also be mentored in knowledge transfer from Rob. So we'll have that whole year. He'll be ready to inspect public works projects. So he's going to need a vehicle to go to those projects. So our thing was get an electric vehicle like our code enforcement does.
Mhm.
And that code enforcement vehicle we use, I think we filled it up with fuel maybe once a year. Because he's only driving it 20 hours a week. So it never uses up all the gasoline. So that's why we're thinking if we get another electric vehicle for our inspector, the fuel will be minimal. It'll be pretty much run on electricity.
Unless you get him a Tesla, and then you won't need
That'd
to
be
worry
your
about
decision. You want
gas.
to do that? We'll have to.
Even that's in budget for 2021, right?
Correct. That's
And
correct.
We're not going to purchase that unless we need it. I mean, even though it's in the budget, if we don't
Yes.
need it at that time,
Right.
we can say no.
Yes. Well, let's say if he's not ready to be an inspector.
That's what I'm saying.
Right,
We don't
yes.
know if he's going to be ready or not.
Correct.
Rob, did you have a question?
Yes, I had a comment, and that is in the past, we've had 2 men in the big combination trucks. And most agencies and contractors have one man in the combination truck and the other worker in a utility truck. It makes cleaning go faster, and it is safer, and that's really the change that's being made, is more of a change for efficiency and safety. So that's the reason behind the request for the trucks. Clarify that.
You know, the Highway Patrol does that on Caltrans projects. Now they have a Highway Patrol officer parked right behind the Caltrans work. So from a safety standpoint, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Well, I think
That's a good idea.
I don't think you can argue anything that improves the safety of staff.
Without the utility truck, the second worker is standing over a manhole that's open in the middle of the street with a few cones around it.
Mike, did you have something?
Yeah, Caitlin, I had kind of an obscure question maybe, but it just jumped out at me for some reason. Under, I think it was attachment A, there was way down at the bottom, something about sponsorships. Sorry to interrupt your call. We went from 4,000 to 54,000 in sponsorships. I'm assuming that's the city contribution?
Correct.
The extra
Correct.
50 grand?
Yes, in wastewater fund.
Okay, now we've already given that donation, or it wasn't budgeted up until when we made that decision a couple of weeks ago to give them the 50 grand.
You made two decisions. You made a decision to donate for the bridge shelter, which is a temporary shelter, which
Yeah.
we gave them the money. They have that money now. And the second decision was to put it in the budget to fund the permanent restroom.
That's that 50,000.
That's just 50,000.
We're not, you remember how we talked about how the city wanted that in perpetuity to have that 50 grand? That's not included in any future budget,
No,
right?
just that 1 year.
Okay, just want to make sure.
You know, with the governor's request to use Fairview Hospital, 200 some beds. So, and the city's objecting to that because of that's their project, so maybe that project's not gonna, I don't know, we'll see how it goes.
I don't know how that's going to go, but Fairview makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways it doesn't make sense. So.
Or Bob?
On the capital projects, we have probably 5 or 6 force main replacement projects over the last few years. President and Canyon and now Iowa and Evermore and West Bluff. And we have also on this capital improvement project a force main evaluation. So aren't we getting the cart ahead of the horse? Because it appears we already know. So we're proposing to spend $128,000 on a force main evaluation program. We either need it or we don't need it. It doesn't appear we need it because we're using some sort of logic right now to do these force main.
Sure.
I think Avamore is asbestos cement pipe, and I think that's appropriate. And I think that's probably the only asbestos cement force main we have.
No, Iowa's another one.
Is it
Yeah.
same?
Yeah.
Anyway, I would like to see the planning done ahead of the projects, or not do the planning.
If I may refer to our district engineer, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that the force main evaluation is to evaluate the other force mains that aren't on this list, correct?
Yes, it's really to evaluate all of them. The good news is that we have a replacement program, and we replace, and now I'm saying to Scott, stop. We don't want to replace yet because they're not that old. So instead of replacing something that's not that old, we're going to study actually what condition it is rather than just continue to update everything.
What besides age can we use? We have a history of line breaks or not. We have a history of line breaks in Canyon, so.
We could use the technology out of Canada that we used before, which is state-of-the-art. There are other ways to introduce something into the line that can test the line, or maybe pothole it at a couple locations and put a meter on it, check wall thickness, local soil testing. There's a protocol of items that can be checked that are not necessarily going inside the pipe like we did before. But we want to look into that and get all our records in order and stay on top of everything. We did a great job that we caught all the way up. It's incredible that we've replaced so many force mains that we don't need to right away. These are the last few. So.
Okay, so that was part of that evaluation.
Right.
And those are in 2021 too, Bob.
Yeah.
Jim.
No, I know that.
Essentially, after this review, there's really two factors that are holding up the budget, at least in my thinking. Whichever rate increase we decide to do next week, right?
For CRNR, you're referring?
No.
Oh, the waste.
We have to approve the wastewater rate changes next week, whichever option we've decided to use. Right?
If I may convert, you're not gonna approve the rates next week because we're not gonna have 4 board members here. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna have a hearing to determine if the Prop 218 hearing, determine if a majority protest exists.
Okay.
And if it doesn't exist, then you can proceed to adopt the budget, adopt the rates in June.
So we still are adopting the rates in June, as long as.
Yes, you're not adopting your rates next week. Next week is our Prop 218 hearing to see if a majority protest exists.
Okay. Can we, the other factor is the CRNR CPI and how that's going to affect the budget. Will we be deciding that next week, or is that in June as well?
That most likely be June. We're contingent on Mark Davis is doing his audit over there, and so.
Okay.
Can you have an update for us?
Yeah, we wouldn't have results in that until the June timeframe. So no, you won't be considering that at all.
Okay. We had talked about this extra budget meeting at the end of the month, the 28th or 29th, whatever the date is.
Well, that's not for sure.
No, I'm saying, but if we go forward with that meeting, will we have those? We'll certainly know whether we have a protest on the 218 by that time.
If you want to adopt the rates on the 29th, have that special meeting, and there's four board members there, yes, you can do that. Sure.
You have to have 4 board members.
Yeah, that's why we couldn't. Yes, correct. That's why we could not adopt the
Right.
rates, because to do that you need 4/5 votes on it, and so we're going to only have 3 board members next week.
I'm not in a hurry to get it done before June 27th because having it to approve a rate at a special meeting in the morning, I don't think it's very prudent for us to do. I think we need to do it at our regularly scheduled meeting time. Okay, but having that information by the 29th will help us when we go into June to make the decisions. That's all I'm asking.
Just for clarification, so information regarding Mark Davis findings on the audit,
Whatever we're going to do with CRNR.
Yeah.
To me, I think we pretty much decided on the rate, what rates we're going to go with.
We're not going to have that information for you by the 29th.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, just.
This year, there was a change in the LASCO distribution. Historically, there's been substantially less in the solid waste fund and more in the wastewater fund. This year, they're the same. And I don't think it's, with a deficit, with us still running a deficit in the solid waste fund, I don't think it's appropriate to make that change, unless there's good logic for it. Because historically, the funds have been unbalanced. That's my first question. There's also a charge in the solid waste fund of $52,000 plus for rent of this building, and that's been a historical charge. But I think as long as the solid waste fund is running a deficit, I need to better understand why that money should be taken out of the solid waste fund and put into the wastewater fund. And we call it a transfer in and a transfer out. I mean, that's the correct way to do it. I don't agree that we need to do it unless I understand it better. And my input on the solid waste rate increase requested by CRNR is staff gets a 2.5% increase. You know, my retirement fund gets 2.5% to 3% increase, and it's capped. You know, I'm more dismayed now that we allowed CR&R to ask for a 2-year increase. And I understand that the board gets to approve it. That is a significant amount of money, and I don't know whether it's on all three funds that CR&R gets paid for, the organics and the cans and the tonnage. Is it on all three?
All three, yes.
And it's just on those three.
Yes.
That's a $300,000-$400,000 increase in budget. I mean, we can calculate it, but it may not be more than 300,000. But if 300,000, that's still significant. And I realize they wouldn't get one next year. But I'm for spreading it out a little bit. Just like, staff doesn't get one every other year. Staff gets one every year. And I think it's appropriate that they do get one every year, CIP.
Is that part of the contract we signed, 2-year increments?
Yeah, we did that for budget purposes, yes.
That's to help us.
Yes.
But it's also subject to board approval.
Right. Yeah, so you can approve it, you can approve a different amount, you can, half, or you don't have to approve it. You have that discretion.
How would that affect the contract, though?
Nothing. The contract, that's what the contract is. It's based on board approval. So it's compliant with the contract.
Bob's position is to put half of it 1 year and half of it the next year, basically. So it's not increasing, because it multiplies over.
They're looking at 5.8 over a 2-year period, though.
No, that's what I'm saying.
So we're already giving them half and half, aren't we?
No, it goes all of it in the first
So
year.
for the first 2 years, the 5.8 applies?
No, first year.
First year.
5.8 applies. None in the second year.
That's what Bob's point was. Why not?
I'm
You
sorry.
want to split it?
I mean, that's something we haven't really talked about, but that would be one consideration.
It's an alternative that I.
Yeah, I think we might want to, that's good, I think that'd be good for discussion. I think we should wait till what Mark finds, and then we can have that discussion.
Well, I'm making that input today.
Yeah, no.
And then I'll make it again.
Okay, I'll make it my notes.
So the rent, I need to understand why the solid waste fund is charged rent for this building.
Turn that over to Mark.
Okay, I'll take that one. This facility operates both functions, both the wastewater function and the solid waste function.
Yeah.
And staffing here again operates in both enterprises. If we were to say no, we're not going to charge the solid waste fund for its share of the rent, then it would result in not a fair and equitable allocation of the cost of the facility to the wastewater fund. Wastewater fund would be bearing more than it should be bearing for rent. So that's why there's a charge between the two, and that charge is developed based upon the time and effort that the various employees that spend time on solid waste fund in relation to the total operations of the facility. That's how that dollar amount was determined to be able to transfer over to the wastewater fund.
And that same determination was for our other facility also, wasn't it? The same amount, same percentage?
No, this is something that is new that came into play here when we moved to this facility. And so when we moved to this facility, at the very beginning, we started this process of allocating to the solid waste fund. This facility is much more expensive than the other facility, and it's just the right thing to do, that each enterprise needs to bear its fair and equitable share of costs.
Well, I think fair, substantially is lower. Was there a study done?
Just an internal study by staff, correct? Yes.
Any other questions?
No, that's good.
Mr. Mosier, did you care to speak to us?
I have one other comment.
Thank you, President Ferryman. My name again is Jim Mosier.
Okay, Mr. President, I've just been advised if Mr. Mosier, if it's okay, Mark Davis just has a comment to make before Mr. Mosier.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Mosier. There is one other item that I wanted to make to this. When you see the proposed budget come back to you for adoption in June, there will be one difference from what you're seeing today. And that difference is really in the presentation of the property tax money that we have been talking about over the last couple meetings. And in order to, as Mr. Mosier had brought up in previous meetings, in order to show a little bit more transparency in that property tax fund, we're going to show a separate fund for your adoption. It's not going to change in total. The budget's not going to change in total, but we're going to be breaking out that property tax money and any associated interest on that that is really unrestricted funds. And then we're going to show in the proposed budget 100% of that being transferred over to the solid waste fund as for rate stabilization purposes, just like we have done in years past. What it will do to the public, it will be a little bit more transparent that there's this unrestricted money coming in, and you as a board will have an opportunity then to make decisions on how you want to use that unrestricted money. Staff is going to suggest that we fund it 100% to the solid waste fund, as we've done since inception. That's the only change that you're going to see, and I want to just make that comment just in case that was where Mr. Mosier was going to go with his comment.
How does that affect the $50,000 next year for the building, or the improvements of the city building? If you transfer it all to the solid for the.
And that $50,000 would be pulled out of both funds, and it would be spent out of the what we will probably call a general fund. It will be spent out of the general fund, and then the balance would be transferred over to the solid waste fund.
Mr. Mosier, would you?
Yeah. Thank you again. My first comment, I personally have somewhat lost track of why the district is doing its budgeting on a 2-year basis rather than an annual basis like most agencies do. It seems to me budgeting for 2021 is quite a ways off, and there's a lot of uncertainty about that. That budget kind of needs to be revisited as you get closer to that year, and it seems to me this process might be actually generating more work than it's saving. I'm sure the staff has an opinion about that. To me, it seems kind of burdensome and confusing to be budgeting for 2 years instead of 1. That's first comment. Second comment, the discussion that you just had about the rent. I think many members of the public were under the impression that the district had bought this building, and I gather we're still paying rent on it. So that is something that might need some clarification, probably for the Citizen Advisory Committee when they're meeting tomorrow. Next comment I wanted to make is I really appreciate in the presentation the breakout of that's capital improvement, of what the line items consist of and what staff is planning to spend under each line item, because a budget that just has line items, say professional services, you don't know what kind of services they're budgeting for, is very confusing. This is very helpful, and I'm wondering if that detail, I assume it must exist somewhere with staff for all the line items. It's probably in the form of a spreadsheet. And I'm wondering if it would be practical to post that somewhere so that the public understands where the budget is coming from in terms of the detail. It didn't seem to be too difficult to show it for the selected line items that are here. And then to Mr. Davis's discussion, I did want to seek some clarification about what the budget is indicating. So I'm looking at the first page of attachment A, and it is showing the 2 columns for the solid waste fund and the wastewater fund. At the very beginning, under operating revenues, it shows the annual charge of roughly $5 million for both funds. And I would like clarification that that $5 million is the amount that appears on the property tax bills of the people being billed for solid waste service and the properties being billed for wastewater services. And then under that, under non-operating revenues, we see an amount of $320,000. It says property tax. I am seeking clarification that that $320,000 is the part, the district's small share of the 1% basic fee that goes on all the properties, but only some of them are getting a share for this district, which the state believes is going to the Costa Mesa Sanitary District General Fund. these two columns, I assume, are being treated as wastewater, as enterprise funds, which means that they are dedicated to the purpose that it says at the top of the column. So I'm a little confused why the rent is being moved from one fund to another rather than just being paid out of the two funds directly. I do not understand that, because if the column is representing money collected for solid waste, it should be used for that purpose. It shouldn't be just arbitrarily moved into wastewater. And then second, in the proposed budget, and I'm not sure how this is going to work, there's good that there's transparency, that there's the unrestricted money coming in, but as Director Michael Schaefer mentioned, under public information, we see something called sponsorships, and it's showing the $50,000. This is showing the $320,000 of unrestricted money is going to the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund. The $50,000 donation is coming out of the wastewater fund, and I don't see any transfer happening or anything to explain that. So those are my comments. I probably ran over time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if we want to respond to that.
I can respond to this first comment regarding the two-year budgets. It is common practice for public agencies to have two-year budgets. I know City of Costa Mesa has a two-year budget. I know my previous organization in Claremont had two-year budget. Honestly, there is a lot of work put in by the finance department. I know Caitlin can attest to this. She's worked very hard putting the two-year budget together. It is a lot of work. But then next year, we don't have to put a budget together. So there's that benefit. Another for us, I believe it's a lot simpler for a two-year budget than a city, because we do know that our revenues are constant. Unlike a city budget, sales tax, they're up and down. Those are hard to predict. Those are harder. Property tax even sometimes hard to predict. But we know what our assessment revenues are going to be. So that's not hard. So in essence, putting a two-year budget is a lot easier than a city does. So I personally prefer the two-year budget. I know finance, when I go through the budget, it is a lot of work, but they do a great job. They put together a very solid budget. And as you see in our quarterly budget reports, we do a pretty good job staying within the budget. Unfortunately, sometimes there's some unknowns out there that happens, and we plan for that. But all in all, I think finance does an excellent job presenting to you a two-year budget.
Okay, thank you.
Does Mark need to explain? Jim, does Mark need to make any comments, or is this the time to do that?
Mr. President, I can certainly address Mr. Mosier's other comments regarding the some of the line items in the budget, if you'd like.
Please.
Okay. Sorry, Jim.
The first question had to do with the annual charge, and just the comment as to whether or not that is what's going to appear on the property tax bill. And the answer to that is probably. And I say that because we're making those estimates now with information that we know now. What gets placed on the property tax bill happens in the August timeframe, so there's a time lag here. What will get placed on the property tax bill will be very, very close to that number, but there may be changes that are going to happen between the time you adopt the budget and the time that the tax bills or the information that we transmit to the county for placing on the tax bill. We will transmit information based upon the rates that you've set for both solid waste and wastewater, but the actual dollar amount might be just a little bit different. This is staff's best estimate of what will be placed, what we will transmit to the county. The second question on the property taxes under the solid waste fund of $320,000. Yes, that is, as we were talking about earlier, that is the unrestricted funds that the district receives as its share of property tax. And that is the money that I was talking about earlier that we will segregate when it comes back to you in the form of a proposed budget into a separate general fund. And then we'll show that general fund being fully expended, part of that budget being the proposed contribution to the city for the bridge housing, as well as then the transfer out to the solid waste fund. as for rate stabilization purposes to help with fund that. And then finally, the third comment was on rent that we discussed a little bit previously. When this building was purchased, the building was funded 100% by the wastewater fund. The solid waste fund paid nothing for the acquisition of this facility. That prompted the concept of the solid waste fund being charged rent to use this facility, and that's where the transfer comes in. We talked about the methodology in that. And those were the three comments that he had.
Okay, any other comments?
How long will that charge be going on for?
We would anticipate that as long as the district uses this facility, and as long as the district has a solid waste function, and as long as there are that solid waste function is housing here, it will go on the same amount of time. Having said that, the dollar amount will be evaluated each year as to what that should be. It won't necessarily be the same 52.8.
Could it decrease, or would you anticipate it increasing?
If I were a guessing person, I would say it would increase over time, but that remains to be seen.
And that could also be up to the board too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That is up to you as to whether you want to include that.
Well, like if we put a roof on it, which we already did, that would increase the value of property, so it would transfer into the accounting.
Okay, that's the question I had.
Okay, anything else on that?
So, Mr. President, if I could get some clarification, so does the board want a special meeting? I'm hearing that it doesn't sound like they do, but I just need some clarification. Do you want a special meeting to bring this back on the 29th? The 29th?
I think so, just from Bob's thoughts that he had on the first year versus both years separate.
But we're not going to have any information for you by then.
Yeah,
that's
if
the
we're going to
problem.
have a special meeting, I'd rather it be done after Mark does his analysis of CR&R and before we do the June 27th meeting. So if we move it out to sometime in June.
We can have it at your June study session. Mark will have his information by the June study session.
That would be good.
Better than another meeting.
No.
Just so we have to get it done before a certain deadline, right, for the budget?
Yes, we have to adopt the budget by the end of June. So Mark will have his information. He said he'll have the information for our June study session, and we have a good discussion then. And then you'll give us some clarification, and we can bring that back in June for adoption.
What information?
He's evaluating the books.
Books,
CR&R.
CR&Rs, yes.
That'll be a big job.
So we'll still bring this. I guess we still bring it back next week, because it's kind of tied into the rates. But if there's any other discussion you want on the budget, we'll bring it next week as well.
Is that at the board meeting, you mean?
Yes, yeah, at the board meeting.
And how many people, 3 people would be here next week?
Yes.
It'll be quality, not quantity.
Are you gone?
No, Bob's here. You and I and Bob, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm gone.
You'll be here? See,
Yeah.
Jim and I will be gone.
Okay, let's move along. Item 6, alkaline battery recycling program. Final report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nabila Guzman is going to be giving you this report to I'm pleased to announce, our most successful battery recycling program to date. So I'm going to turn it over to Nabila.
Good morning, President Ferryman, members of the board. This year, 20 schools participated in the battery recycling program, and they collected 12,662 pounds of batteries. This was the 6th year of the program, and every year since the pilot year, there has been a steady increase in schools participating and in the pounds of batteries collected. This year's growth in the program is attributed to the Board of Directors' decision to increase and revise the rewards. So previously, you had a first place, second place, third place, and everybody else, if they collected over 50 batteries, got $300. This year, after your approval, the current award breakdown is more reflective of the school's efforts. So if any school collects over 1,000 pounds of batteries, they get $500. And then schools that collect under 50 pounds of batteries get $100. So now everybody gets an award. The check presentation started last week. Thank you for signing up. And we have more presentations throughout the rest of this month and into June. So I still have some slots available if you guys are interested. I can send that schedule to the board.
Are we good for this Friday at California School?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
That concludes my report. I'm available for any questions.
I have a question. Are there any high schools involved?
Yes, we only have one high school this year. It is Early College High School.
I was thinking we're missing the boat by not having, Estancia used to participate.
I did reach out to them at the beginning of the school year, and I never heard back.
How do you reach out? Do you?
I emailed the principal, the principal of each school. I figured that was a good way to start.
I was thinking maybe you make an appointment with the activities directors. This is a thought for next year because those are the ones that are going to be running the program. I just thought if you went and made an appointment, told them about the program, because Estancia was always really successful, and they're not really, high school kids, they have 12 to 1,400 kids in the schools versus the elementary schools. I think it could be more proactive that way if you made an appointment with the two activities directors. Just a
I
thought.
can do that. I can do that. Thank you.
And Bob? Well, I made one of the presentations to the early college high school. And my thought was, and Amelia and I talked a little bit about this. I would like to see some sort of a little bag that the students could bring the batteries to them, with information on it, about what the importance of the program is. So, like a little sandwich bag, because I doubt if. Well, I wouldn't want to bring certain batteries in my pocket, and I don't know how they get them there. Just students walking along, put them in their backpack or whatever, and they probably provide the bags. But I think as an educational tool, we could have little sandwich-sized bags or something with the program on it, and give them out, by the hundreds or whatever. And then maybe the student could take them back home. I don't care. I think they're cheap at twice the price. But something to determine for the parents and the students what the program is, and maybe even the little chart showing how successful the program has been, and especially listing the 8 or 10 toxicants that we're trying to keep out of trying to keep from polluting the environment. The students were so enthusiastic, when I made that presentation. And, we collected 12,000 pounds, 12,700 pounds. And, so I used the visual that, how much does an African elephant weigh? And I gave them 3 choices. And they knew how much it weighed, which was exactly the same as the amount we collected last year. So next year, maybe we can have 1.5 elephants.
Every one of those kids in the audience, when you asked that question, they all went on Google on their phones and they got it. That's how they got it so fast. Every kid in there has a phone with Google ready to go.
Well, but they all had their phones off during my presentation.
Yeah, you bet. They turn them on as soon as you start speaking.
I showed her how to silence it.
They were recording. I think they were recording my presentation.
No doubt. It'll be on YouTube later.
Have some type of bags we present to the schools,
Anyway,
larger size sandwich bag,
just a little bag.
I'm sure the parents, let's be realistic. The parents are the ones that collect these batteries.
Yeah.
And have a little bag like that, I think
it's
a terrific idea, something they could take back and forth to school.
Yeah. Or just take to school.
with a deadline date,
Yeah.
something, so this program ends.
Don't forget it.
I would contact a couple of activity directors and,
Yeah, I mean, if you brought everything like that into the activities director at the high school, they would do it. If the principal tells them, hey, why don't you do this, they're going to bypass it because they're so busy doing other things. But I'm serious.
Anyway, just an idea. The program has been tremendously successful.
Yeah.
And I would look for ways from the activity directors how to make it more successful. And I'm sure it will.
The teachers are getting more excited to get the payouts now, to put the batteries in.
And we used to do like the top couple classes, got an ice cream party or something. So that was, we could generate that
Incentive,
incentive for the classes to do it.
I just thought it wouldn't be very good. High school kids usually use those batteries as, to throw at people and stuff, so they probably don't want to collect them.
Well, but they are bringing them.
Congratulations to the staff on a great program.
Oh, really good.
Very
That
well
goes
done.
into, that goes into our percentage, right?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Leave it to Art.
An elephant sign.
Okay, let's move along. 2019 compost and donation event.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, on Pila will be given a presentation to, again, another one of our very successful events.
President Ferryman, members of the board, on Saturday, April 27th, the district held its second annual textile collection event and the first compost giveaway. The event was held at the OCC Recycling Center parking lot. Staff set up on the left-hand side of the parking lot to still let OCC Recycling Center's customers have an entryway into the recycling center and access to both buyback counters. The event was from 9 a.m. to noon, and there were approximately 42 textile donors who donated 3,780 pounds of textiles. This year, the district partnered with Clothes for the Cause. This is a local fundraising nonprofit organization that paid the district 10 cents per pound collected. So the district will be receiving a check for $380. $380 for all donations collected. And that money will be going towards the cost of the battery recycling program next year. That is how we advertised. So next year, that money will go towards one of the rewards or costs associated with the program. For the compost giveaway portion of the event, we asked residents to bring a compost coupon found in the spring newsletter, as well as proof of district residency. There were approximately 217 cars that participated in the event, and residents were still stopping by as staff was cleaning up and long after the event was over. The giveaway attracted residents from South County and Huntington Beach who had heard about the event through social media and posters at the OCC Recycling Center. Because of this, in the morning portion of the event, the line of cars spilled onto the street and caused a bit of traffic problems. So because of this, staff is exploring the idea of holding the event next year at a bigger parking lot at OCC, at the college, or possibly the fairgrounds. As this event attracted a lot of residents, we're thinking in the second year it'll be more popular. So we don't want anybody in harm's way. Safety is a big concern. So again, as staff explores these options, we will come back next year with a better event. This concludes my report. I can answer any questions.
Thank you.
On the HHW collection, the battery collection, have we done a press release for the Daily Pilot?
No, but that's good suggestion. We'll do that.
I mean, that's just another way to alert the community that we're doing it, and we're very successful at it.
You know, another thing we might think about is Kaiser School had a day where they bicycles to school type of thing, and they got the police to go along with the children so that nobody got hurt. And we might think about just asking the police to be out there on Adams and help us out some on that. And in conjunction with that, was showing our togetherness. And it'd be some advertising.
The thought I had, because I attended, I was in line waiting. I was like the second or third car in line before 9 o'clock. I was there like at 8:30, and they were starting to back up. But I thought if there's any possibility we could start earlier, because they open at 9, maybe we could ask them if we could be set up earlier than that. That would help, divert the traffic. Is the people would be better flow, because the line was built up from 9 o'clock start.
Yeah, we can look into that. I mean, I got there about 9:30, and it was backed up all the way down Adams. So I came back later.
That's why I'm saying if we could start earlier, and the line, because it got built up from 8:30 on. That was the problem. It got built up by then and never stopped.
Yeah.
But just a thought.
Yeah, we'll look into that.
Thank
Sure.
you.
I think the mulch helped
Oh, yeah,
Definitely,
that's what
definitely,
it-
absolutely.
Because I told my neighbors and friends, and they were calling me saying, "You don't know, we're in this line forever. There's 200 cars, and they're having a fit."
Because I don't think we use the back parking lot at OCC because that's where the swap meet's at. And same thing at the swap meet at the fairgrounds. They have more room probably, but you still have a lot of cars that are going through the swap meet.
Well, we did an event, remember a few years ago at Orange
HHW
Coast?
event there.
And we used the parking lot on Merrimack and
Yeah,
Fairview.
that would be a possibility.
That would be.
That's where we did the HHW collection,
HHW
and it worked
collection.
very well.
Yeah, that might be better.
Yeah.
It'd be better because you can be in and off the street.
Well, we can
Probably not as convenient for Mike as he gets the stuff, but.
probably need to evaluate the whole way we do it.
But, see, Mike doesn't really get much of the stuff because we take the clothes and we give out the mulch.
That's true,
You know
huh?
what I mean? It could be a separate location. You know, a bigger parking lot, like you said, off of Merrimack would be great.
He'd support anything.
He would support it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So a big thanks goes to CRNR for the mulch. I mean, it wouldn't have been a successful event without the mulch. And I also want to thank Nabila, Nalani, and Gina for working that event too. So made it run smoothly.
Well done, once
Yeah.
again.
CNR had like 4+ people working. Is that correct? How many, did you remember the number?
Yes, they had 4 employers, our route manager Juan, and then 2 other employees that came, and they dropped off the mulch the day before. They had a whole flatbed full. So huge thanks to CRNR for providing the staff and the mulch for free. They were
I
great.
even think they stayed after 12 o'clock because when I drove by like at 12:15, they were sitting with the extra bags that were still there. I don't know what time you guys left, but
We left around 12:30. The rest of the mulch that was left over was behind the recycling center.
so they did have stuff left over.
Yes.
Good. Pars looks good in orange, doesn't he?
Okay, congratulations once again. 2019 Waste Expo in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. President. So Nabila Guzman attended the 2019 Waste Expo in Las Vegas in Nevada, and so she's here to give a report on her experience and what she learned there.
Wait a minute, I was there too.
Okay, then you can pipe in too.
I'll tell you what she was doing if you want.
President Ferryman, members of the board, thank you for the amazing opportunity for letting me attend Waste Expo 2019. The conference was very thought-provoking, and it had amazing sessions on a variety of topics of interest to me that have helped me understand the industry better, as well as allowed me to connect with others who face similar issues that we do. Waste Expo began as a trade show, and it has rapidly formed into a must-attend industry conference. They had a variety of tracks focused on policy, collection, and organics, and the conference featured 3 days of sessions where I wanted to attend way too many sessions at the same time. Some of my favorite ones were how to affect positive change and interact with better education to our residents, herb contamination, and a session on single stream versus dual stream and how we can improve our diversion using the mixed waste cart. One of the biggest lessons I learned was that education on recycling does not happen easily. It takes a lot of research and lessons learned of what our residents like and how to kind of better educate them, and it's never going to end. So it was nice to see that every other agency has the same issue. It's amazing to see all the technology that's out there, not just for the haulers, the MRF, but also trash carts, and it blew my mind. They had awards. They had a woman driver that got the driver award of the year from all the different haulers. That was really amazing. There was another driver that received an award because he's been a driver for 40 years. So it was just amazing to see the emphasis that the industry places on the people, and the people that sometimes we don't think about that's actually out there doing the job. President Schaefer, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
You know,
Director Schaefer, sorry.
Sorry, I agree with Nabila. It was an amazing thing.
Could you wait your report for just a
No, not for you. To listen to these different people talk about it, and like I said earlier, I primarily went to the organics and AD and some of the composting seminars or talks or whatever they call them. They had one guy, the guy who's the director of organics recycling for the country of Italy. He spoke at one thing. A guy from Germany. This is a worldwide. I was blown away by the number of people that were there from India. And you can imagine that India obviously has a huge waste stream. I mean, there's all those people in that. But Waste Expo, they do a really nice job of letting you decide on which track. Instead of mixing all these courses up, they have the track set up, and it was easy to follow. But honestly, the best part was the exhibit hall. I've never seen so many big trucks and big tractors, and they even, outside the convention center, if you wanted to, you could drive a trash truck. They would let you drive one of the trucks. You said it was virtual reality. Those guys were driving those trucks through that parking lot, and I thought, I probably shouldn't do that. But the best exhibit was the Schaefer Waste Hall. I don't know what they do, but I wish I'd have brought it. But I went up to the booth and I said to the guy, you can't see this, but they had trash cans with Schaefer on. I went up to the guy and said, you spelled Schaefer wrong. And it's like they took offense to me saying that or something. It was a good expo. I would encourage anybody to go to staff. It was well done.
Yes, it was amazing. It was an
Las
amazing
Vegas,
conference.
I really wish I'd have gotten tickets to the other show that was going on at the convention center, though. It was the Hardware Expo.
I did see that on the other side.
And they had some really cool stuff at the but we couldn't get in. But I'm for Scott. I'm really excited you had Nabila go, and other staff that should go to this. I think it's well worth the education. Next year's is one we all ought to consider going to. So,
Where's that at?
Where's that?
New Orleans.
I knew you were going to say that.
But seriously, I thought it was a very well done expo, and would encourage anybody to go. So thank you for allowing Nabila and I to go.
Yes,
and
thank you.
she was at the sessions. I did see her, Scott, so I know she was there.
Did she see you, though?
Yes. She found me.
Okay, thank you. Consider revising CMSD's operations code, time of regular meetings.
Thank you, Mr. President. This item was requested by the board to be placed on the agenda. The board wants to consider changing the board of directors' regular standard meeting day, that's Thursday, or the fourth Thursday of the month at 5:30 p.m., to another day and time. And one suggestion was the fourth Wednesday of every month at 4:30 p.m. But as you can see in the staff report, I don't think that's going to work, because OCSD, their board of directors meet on the fourth Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. So to help you pinpoint on the specific day and time you want to set, I listed all the meetings that the board attends, and so you can get an idea if there's a month or day and time, you would know if there's a conflict or not by what's in your staff report.
Jim, I'm the one that brought this. It really wasn't the board. It was me that sent this to Nalani and Scott. The fourth Thursday seemed to be a problem. You guys go to SARFA and you have to leave early. You and I have OCOG on the fourth Thursday. So I had looked at the fourth Wednesday, but I had forgotten that OCSD that the fourth Wednesday is not an option, I don't think, for this board. That fourth Thursday is a busy day, and maybe we can consider the third Wednesday of the month for our board. I don't know what that does to staff's schedule, but it would at least free up that fourth Thursday for all of us that have meetings on that day. It becomes a really long day when you have to do all that stuff. So that was my thought process, was this. And moving it up to 4:30, I don't think is a huge inconvenience to the public. And it, allow staff to get out of here at a little earlier time if we go to 4:30. A lot of boards do meet during the day, and I don't want to meet at 9 o'clock in the morning for our board meetings. I don't think that's, but I think a 4:30 start time. I don't think we can do a 4:30 on the fourth Thursday either, because that would really screw up the SARFA meeting for you guys.
No, yeah, it's tough, because Jim's the president of the SARFA right now.
Right.
I was against it after I seen all the things that we all went to, but at the same time, the third Thursday, I'd go for it.
Third Wednesday?
Wednesday?
I don't think gives staff enough time to get prepared.
I
We're
think
thinking
Thursday.
fourth Tuesday.
What's wrong with
the
the
fourth
Thursday?
Tuesday?
What's wrong with the third?
Does that look better to you, Scott?
The fourth Tuesday?
Yeah, the fourth Tuesday, because that way, if you have direction, give us direction on your study session, that gives us time to put it on that board meeting. That
Is that enough time?
Yes.
That would be better than the Wednesday the week before, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That might work.
I would be more in favor of the Wednesday before, personally.
So either the third Wednesday or the fourth Tuesday?
Does that give you enough time on a third Wednesday?
Maybe you could move the.
There's an OCSD steering committee meeting on the fourth Wednesday at 5. Now, no one serves on that, but there's possibly President Fairman or I don't know if Vice President Una, if you serve on any of the committees. I know you go to the meetings, right? You like to attend some of the meetings. They're on the fourth Wednesdays at 5.
Scott, how about the potential of moving the study session to earlier in the month, to still give you the proper amount of time for the board meeting?
It's already kind of early right now. I mean, the study session's fine. I'll say that we go to the fourth Tuesday. I think that'll be, again, that gives us plenty of time. Doesn't change our scheduling for placing the items on the agenda. It still gives us time to write a staff report if you direct us from the study session. So fourth Tuesday works for us at 4:30.
It would work for me.
Tuesday.
Doesn't work for you?
It would.
Oh.
It would probably be okay for me. I would just, for golf matches, I just have to have the other coach take them. I'd have to leave there at 4. We don't finish till 5, but I can make arrangements. There's only a couple conflicts.
Yeah.
It's just during golf season.
Oh, because of the way the season is?
Yeah, because they're Tuesday, Thursday matches usually, but Thursdays I've been able to make.
Now, we'd have to also consult with Alan, make sure he's available, so.
Could we look at those two options then? The fourth Tuesday and the third Wednesday?
And then
just get back to us at 4:30?
What were the 2 days again?
Fourth Tuesday and third Wednesday.
And no Thursday?
Right.
No Thursday? 1, 2, 3.
Think about the third Thursday?
Yeah.
There was something else going on then.
I mean, we could have them 2 in a month or something.
Okay.
The line just brought to my attention, this Thursday, the Citizens Advisory Committee is going to be looking at changing their standard day and time as well. So we'll know that on Thursday.
Okay.
So.
Sounds good. Okay, when are we going to discuss this again? At the next study session? Or
Back at the board meeting.
the board meeting? Okay. And maybe,
But we won't-
Well, you know what, we can.
We won't all be there.
No, we'll be here, so we can't.
Yeah, I think the study session.
That'll be next study
Because we
session.
have time to make sure it's
It's
not affecting everybody.
It's not a critical thing. Might be for you guys,
Yeah.
but for them.
So how are we gonna decide this? You're gonna,
At the
Next
study
study
session.
session, we'll look at it again, maybe see if there's any other corresponding dates that might conflict, or meetings.
So say the dates again?
Fourth Tuesday of the month or the third Wednesday. Is that correct?
4:30.
okay. Any other comments or questions on that?
Just real quick, under comments, when do we do the LAFCO vote? Do you know?
July, right? in July. I guess until we don't have the ballots yet. We have to get the ballots.
Get the ballot first.
Okay, just curious.
Okay, oral communications. Art, do you have anything for us?
Come back to me. I thought I did, but caught me off balance, so talk to somebody else.
Bob?
I think I've made enough.
Okay. I'd just like to say that the staff, once again, demonstrates great ability on what we task them with, and I'm proud of all the good performance that they've demonstrated. Arlene?
I don't have much to say. That's a shock, I know. No, I'm just happy that, we've gotten through all that we have, because to me, between the budget and all that we're doing, it's been very hard to take 5 people and come to different opinions and still get together and say, okay, we gotta have something solid. So, and I did want to say that on that joint meeting with the Citizens Advisory, who's the vice president of this group, vice chair? Is that the one? Okay, is he the one that was, I think he was the one who was at Kelly Brook School. His wife does all this stuff. Anyway, he said to be sure and tell you that he can't make it. And I can't make it either, so I just wanted to say that. And what else? I'm not sure. The 29th, we're not sure about?
There's no meeting.
The 29th has not been canceled.
It's canceled.
The special meeting has
Canceled.
Moved
not
into
been
June.
canceled.
Oh, okay.
Moved in if
Okay,
needed.
so it's a study session. Okay, no problem.
Mike, anything further?
That you had nothing to say. You're good. Jim, I just thank you for mentioning staff, because I think we have the best. So that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else to be brought before this august group, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Yes, I love